Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me tell you something strange. She kissed him right in front of the shrimp platter. He had his hand on her lower back, guiding her through the room like he owned her. Like I was just some distant cousin she invited out of pity. And there they were, barely 10 feet from me, laughing like a couple in a rom-com. She leaned in, whispered something. He laughed. And then, with zero hesitation, she kissed him on the cheek. Slowly. Intimately, like it wasn't their first time. I don't think she knew I saw it. I'm not sure it would have mattered if she had. It wasn't just a kiss. It was how she stood while doing it. Like she had already decided something. Like she'd already left me in her mind long before she did it for real. The party was loud. Music thumping, lights bouncing off crystal glasses, heels clicking on marble. But all I could hear was the awful crunch of the shrimp shell I bit into too hard because I didn't know what else to do with my face. I watched her for 5 full minutes. I didn't blink. I didn't move. Just watched. She never looked for me. Never scanned the room to see if I was nearby. Never even texted to ask where I'd gone. So I walked. Quietly. No one stopped me. No one noticed. Down the long hallway, past the elevators, through the glass lobby with the stupid golden chandelier. I remember looking up at that thing and thinking how ridiculous it was, how it looked like a frozen explosion. Like my life. I didn't go home. I didn't call anyone. I walked into the nearest all-night diner and sat in a red vinyl booth for 3 hours, just sipping coffee and staring at a napkin I never used. And here's where it starts getting complicated. At 3:42 a.m., she called. And at 3:45 a.m., she showed up in the diner parking lot, in bare feet, crying. But that wasn't the most shocking part. What she told me next, that destroyed me. She didn't come inside. She just stood outside the diner, hugging herself like the air had turned to ice. Her heels were dangling from her fingers, mascara smeared under her eyes like smudged ink. She saw me through the window and didn't wave. Just stared like she wasn't sure I was real. I didn't move. I wanted her to. I wanted her to knock, to come inside, to sit across from me and explain everything. But she didn't. So I paid for the coffee I barely touched and walked out. I stood there, maybe 4 feet away from her under the flickering parking lot light. The silence between us felt alive. Her lips parted, but no words came out right away. She looked like she wanted to cry again but didn't have the energy. Finally, she said it. I didn't expect you to leave like that. That was her opening line. No apology. No explanation. Just that. Like I had broken some unspoken rule by walking out instead of staying and watching her flirt with another man. I stared at her and asked, "How long?" She blinked. That was when I saw the panic rise in her throat. "Elora," I said again, slower this time. "How long has it been going on?" She dropped her shoes on the pavement with a dull slap. Her hands went to her face, but she didn't answer. I laughed. I don't know why. It wasn't funny, nothing was funny. But my body didn't know what else to do. That awful kind of laugh that chokes itself halfway through. "You kissed him," I said. "At the shrimp platter. I saw it." "It was just a joke," she said quickly, stepping forward. "It didn't mean anything. It was stupid. He was being ridiculous. And I just..." She stopped. We both knew the script was unraveling. I said nothing. Again. That silence broke her. She stepped closer and whispered, "Please come home. We can talk. I'll explain everything, I swear. I messed up. It was stupid. I could have said something. Anything. But I turned, walked past her, and got in my car. I watched her through the windshield, her figure shrinking in the rearview mirror as I pulled out of the lot. She didn't follow me. But the next day, she sent me a message that shattered every ounce of strength I had left. And I still haven't answered it. The message came in at 7:06 a.m. I hadn't slept. I had driven around all night. No music, no GPS, just random turns in unfamiliar neighborhoods. When I finally parked in front of an abandoned storefront with busted windows and peeling paint, I checked my phone. It was the first thing I'd seen from her since that parking lot. The message was short. 4 words. I told him no. No context. No explanation. Just that. For a second, I didn't understand. Then it hit me. She meant him. The guy at the party. The one whose hand was on her back while she leaned into him like they'd been sharing secrets for months. The message made no sense and made everything worse. It felt like a lie wrapped in a plea, designed to make her look like the one who was cornered. But no one kisses someone in a room full of people if they're saying no. I didn't respond. I didn't even type. I just stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Then I opened our shared photo album, where we kept pictures from road trips, birthdays, lazy Sundays on the couch. I scrolled until I found a picture of us from last fall. She was wearing a beanie, her head on my shoulder. I remembered that day so vividly, how she'd leaned in and said, "I hope you never get tired of me." I think she meant it then. But now she was hiding behind for words, trying to rewrite the night like it was a misunderstanding I imagined. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to wherever she was and demand answers. But mostly I just wanted to vanish, disappear into some quiet corner of the world where no one knew me or expected anything. Instead, I checked into a motel 3 towns over. It was the kind of place with buzzing lights and a lobby that smelled like burnt toast. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. She handed me a key card with a faded room number and pointed down the hall. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't shower. I lay on the bed fully dressed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. I couldn't stop wondering. How many other times had she kissed him? How many secrets were buried under all her "I love you"? I closed my eyes. And that's when the phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a photo. And it told me everything I needed to know. The moment I saw the notification, my stomach dropped. Not because I expected something good, because I didn't, but because some part of me was still hoping it would be something explainable. A screenshot of texts that proved she was being harassed. A picture of her sitting alone, crying in regret. Something that showed she at least felt something real. It wasn't that. It was a selfie, taken in the same rooftop venue from the party. Her hair was messy like she'd been dancing. Her lipstick was slightly smudged. But she looked happy. Not just happy, thrilled, glowing. Pressed up against her was the man from the party, the same smug smile on his face. Her hand was against his chest again. Same spot. The same hand that used to trace circles on my back when I couldn't sleep. No caption. No apology. Just an image that said everything. The worst part? It wasn't sent directly to me. She had sent it to a group chat with her sister and 2 friends. Probably meant to go unnoticed. I was only still in that group by accident. I was never meant to see it. I stared at it for what felt like hours. My thumb hovered over the leave group button more than once, but I didn't click it. I wanted them to see I was still there, still watching, still bleeding quietly in the corner of their carefully curated lives. I didn't confront her. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Any response would be twisted, minimized, turned into a joke. She'd say I was taking things out of context or that it wasn't what it looked like. But I had already seen what it looked like. And worse, I saw what she looked like when she thought I wasn't watching. She looked free. That night, I turned off my phone for good. Threw it into the motel drawer like it was radioactive. I couldn't take another vibration. Another message that threatened to twist my ribs even tighter. I laid back on the mattress again, staring at the same brown ceiling stain. But this time, something inside me changed. I stopped wondering how it happened. I started wondering why I stayed so long in a place I wasn't even seen. I was invisible at home. I had proof now. But what I didn't know yet was that she had already told him I was gone, and she wasn't expecting me to come back. I woke up before dawn in that motel room, still wearing yesterday's clothes, my mouth dry from stale air and bitter coffee. For a second, my brain tried to trick me. Tried to convince me it had all been a nightmare, that I'd wake up to her making pancakes or scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table. But the ceiling stain above me was real. The neon flicker outside the window was real. And the silence where my phone used to vibrate with her messages was deafening. When I finally turned it back on, there were 17 notifications waiting. 12 of them were from her. The rest were from unknown numbers. Her first few messages were frantic. "Where are you? We need to talk." Then they shifted. "Please answer. This isn't what you think." And finally, at 3:02 a.m., one that sent a shiver through me. "He doesn't know you're still in town." That was the moment I realized she had moved me off the board entirely. In her mind, I wasn't even a factor anymore. She'd rewritten the narrative, and I was a ghost. That's when something inside me clicked. Not anger, not even heartbreak, but a cold, aching clarity. I didn't have to fight for a place in her life. I didn't have one. I scrolled further and found a voicemail from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I played it. A man's voice, low and smug, filled the room. "If you're smart, you'll stay gone. She's finally happy. Don't ruin it for her." My skin went cold. He knew my number. He knew I was gone. He was telling me to stay out of my own life like it was a neighborhood he owned. I didn't smash the phone like I wanted. I didn't call him back. I didn't call her. Instead, I sat there, phone in my lap, feeling the weight of every decision I hadn't made, every confrontation I'd avoided, every quiet night when I'd chosen not to ask hard questions because I was afraid of the answers. Then, for the first time in years, I wrote something down. Not a text, not an email, a letter. 3 pages of everything I'd never said, written in ink on motel stationery. I folded it carefully and slid it into an envelope with her name on the front. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a threat. It was my goodbye, though I didn't know yet how or when she would read it. I left the motel at sunrise. The sky was soft gray and pink, and for a moment, I almost felt like I was watching someone else's life. I didn't go home. I didn't go to work. I drove to a place only she and I had ever been together. A quiet spot on the edge of a lake where we used to skip stones. And there I waited, envelope in hand, wondering if she would come looking, or if she already believed I was a memory. The lake was exactly as we'd left it years ago. Still, hushed, almost untouched by time. The kind of place people forget exists until their heart gets too loud to ignore. I sat on the crooked bench beneath the birch tree, the envelope resting on my lap like a fragile secret. The air smelled of moss and morning. The fog hovered over the water in thin streaks, as if even the world wasn't sure what it wanted to reveal yet. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Part of me hoped she would remember this place, that some buried thread in her heart would tug her here like it used to on bad days. But hours passed. Birds came and went. The fog lifted. No one came. At one point, I stood and walked to the water's edge, holding the letter like it was heavy with everything I had left. I considered tossing it into the lake, letting it sink, letting it rot. But something told me she had to read it. Not for closure, not to fix anything, just to know. To know what it felt like to be erased before you even had a chance to fight for yourself. I slipped it under the bench, weighed down with a flat stone, and walked back to my car. I didn't look back, but as I pulled onto the gravel road, I saw a car parked farther up, half hidden behind trees. Her car. I stopped. My hands froze on the steering wheel. For a second, I thought about reversing, pulling in beside her. Maybe even pretending like none of this ever happened. Just sit together on that bench like we used to, sharing silence and the occasional laugh. But I didn't move. Instead, I watched as she stepped out of the car alone. She looked different. Not like someone who'd come to apologize, but like someone chasing something that had slipped through her fingers. She didn't see me. She walked toward the bench slowly, as if afraid of what might be there. When she spotted the envelope, she stopped in her tracks. She didn't pick it up right away. She just stared at it. And then, in the most surreal twist, he stepped out of her passenger seat. The same man from the party. The same voice from the voicemail. He looked around like it was unfamiliar territory, like he knew he didn't belong here. I saw her glance back at him, hesitant, small. She picked up the envelope, and for a brief second, I thought she might run. Instead, she handed it to him. Not to read, to hold. Like my final words were too much for her to carry. That was when I drove away for real this time. No hesitation, no what-ifs. I left them there, her with my goodbye in someone else's hands. And somehow that hurt even more than the betrayal. I should have looked away. I should have just driven like a man with a spine. But I didn't. I parked a few yards down the road, hidden behind a curve of trees, and watched through the mirror. Watched as he held my letter, squinting down at my handwriting like it was some kind of challenge. She didn't even try to stop him. She stood there, arms crossed, chewing her thumb like a teenager waiting for detention to end. I didn't write that letter for him. Every word was meant for her. For the version of her I used to believe still existed. The one who whispered, "I love you," like it was something fragile and rare. The one who once stood on that very lakeshore and told me I was her safest place. But now she stood beside a man who read my final words like a grocery list. His eyes moved fast, his mouth curled once. Maybe a smirk, maybe disgust, I'll never know. He finished reading before she even reached for it. And then he laughed. Not loud, not dramatic, but a dry, mocking exhale that carried across the quiet lake like a slap. He crumpled the letter in his palm. She flinched. I saw it. A tiny jolt in her posture, like her body betrayed something her mouth wouldn't say. She reached for it then, tried to smooth it back out. But he shook his head, said something. I couldn't hear, but his hand touched her elbow, lightly, like a warning. She didn't resist. She folded the letter, badly, unevenly, like it had already lost its shape. She held it against her chest for a second. I thought maybe she was about to cry, but she didn't. Instead, she turned back to the car and got in. I watched the taillights vanish down the road like the closing of a chapter one wasn't even allowed to finish writing. I didn't chase. I didn't scream. I just sat there, breath fogging the windshield, realizing the most painful truth of all. She didn't want the truth. She wanted comfort. And that comfort came in the form of a man who could read the last page of someone's soul and laugh. That night, I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go anywhere familiar. I drove until I ran out of gas near a diner with a neon sign that read, "Open Hearts, 24 hours." Felt ironic enough to walk into. I sat in the farthest booth and ordered a coffee I didn't want, just to keep the waitress from asking questions. And just when I thought the night had nothing left to offer, my phone lit up again, this time with a name I hadn't seen in years. The name on my phone screen didn't make sense at first. I hadn't seen it in years. Becca, my cousin's old college roommate. We used to talk a lot back when Alora and I first started dating. She was always blunt, funny, the kind of person who saw straight through performance and politely called it out. We lost touch after the wedding, no falling out, just life. Her message was short. Saw the picture. I'm sorry. You deserve better. If you're in town, come by. That photo, someone must have shared it. I didn't ask how she saw it. I just stared at her name, blinking on the screen like a door I didn't expect to open. And I went. She lived in a quiet apartment above a bookstore, the kind that still smelled like paper and cinnamon. I don't know what I expected. Awkwardness, maybe. But when she opened the door, she just hugged me. No questions. No forced smiles. Just real warmth. The kind I hadn't felt in years. We talked all night. About everything and nothing. She didn't ask about Alora until I was ready. And when I told her, she didn't give me cliches or empty comfort. She just listened. The sun was rising when she walked me to the door. I turned to leave, but she touched my arm and said something I'll never forget. You didn't lose her, Gordon. You found the truth. That's braver. It hit me harder than anything Alora ever said. I left the apartment with no plan, no big revelation. Just a quiet acceptance. I wasn't okay. Not yet. But I wasn't broken either. And that was something. Weeks have passed since then. I found a new place. Small, quiet, mine. I go for walks. I read more. I even signed up for a pottery class, if you can believe that. Becca and I talk sometimes. Nothing serious. But it's nice. As for Alora, she never reached out again. And honestly, I hope she's doing whatever she needs to do to figure herself out. I just know it won't be with me, because I finally remembered what I look like when I'm not shrinking. And I kind of like that guy. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. Tell us in the comments what moment in this story shocked you the most. And when did you think Gordon truly began to heal? Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional true stories just like this one. You never know, the next confession might feel a little too familiar.